Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to your next presenter, Barry Gordon, broker and CEO for Gordon's Downsizing and Estate Services. Gordon's Downsizing is a 65-year-old family-built company recognized as an industry pioneer in fully integrated real estate and transition services. Over his 5 decades of hands-on experience, Barry has helped thousands of seniors and estate trustees navigate major life transitions with clarity, compassion, and proven systems. Barry's team's work has facilitated the sale of more than 3,500 properties, over $1 billion in real estate, and more than 1 million personal property items, earning Gordon's national recognition for excellence in service and organizational leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, to present to you today, Keeping Your Clients Safe While Downsizing, I give to you Barry Gordon.
Thanks, Alan. And so we're glad to be with you in this webinar and hope you enjoy it. And my name is Barry Gordon. I am the CEO of Gordon's Downsizing and Estate Services. We're just in the middle of rebranding to Gordon's Real Estate Brokerage, everything under one roof. Same company, evolving brand. I'm going to show you how to find us at the end. What I really want to tell you is that we are an integrated real estate and transition company. We built our company to be a better option for people that are downsizing or selling estates. And I'm going to tell you what I think about safety in downsizing for what financial planners ought to know about for their clients. So this is really for you as financial planners, for your clients, so that you can be better informed and better advisors based on the things that I see. So safety is a big word these days. There's lots of things to feel unsafe about, and we'll talk about some of those things, and then we'll talk about the way I see the world, which may be slightly different than what occurs to people on a regular basis, but that's why it might be important to you. So keeping your clients safe in downsizing. Let me say here at the outset that financial planners got an important role to play when clients that are thinking about downsizing from their last home, they're pulling out their equity, you're gathering their assets, and they may be relying on you to set them up with an income stream from the equity. And we want to be ahead of these events rather than finding out after the sale is firm or that the cash is in the bank. You want it so that you can be sure that you're the one managing the assets. And you also want to be sure because the whole downsizing envelope is riskier now. And it's going to become more risky with the advent of AI. AI in the hands of fraudsters is a scary thing. All the more reason why we need to be prudent. So why does it matter now? Well, times are riskier, right? Downsizing, complexity is rising. And when complexity rises, then there's a whole lot more confusion. It's harder for people to get the right decisions. And one of the themes that I want to be talking to you about today is you in the life of your client. And I know that's your focus anyway, but I want you to just be really aware of how we see the risk in downsizing, because it's important, but there's lots of risks out there and it's not always the obvious one. Seniors are targeted daily. We know this, right? They're targeted daily and scams are increasing. Man, oh man, the kind of scams that are out there. And we get them all the time. You probably get them in your own box as well. And often it's difficult for even a seasoned person to figure out whether this is real or not. I heard a lady who got in a call with a scammer and she had been convinced that her credit cards were a problem. They'd been compromised, which they weren't yet. And so she cut the cards up. She was told to cut the cards up and then bring them out, and they were going to send somebody to pick them up. The bank was going to send somebody to pick them up and then replace them. And of course, she goes out and gives the cards, cut up card, and then the scammers knew how to put whatever pieces of the card back together they needed to go ahead, and now she really was scammed. So they're just getting more creative all the time. And your client's home is their largest tax-free asset for most, so it's an important part of the portfolio. As we all know, when they sell their house, that's a big piece of gathering assets that comes into the portfolio for you, and as it should be, where you can keep it safe and help them have what they want for the rest of their life after they do that big downsize. So it's a high-stakes transition. It's got lots of facets to it, right? There's emotional facets, financial facets, logistical facets, legal facets, and much more than just a real estate sale. And unfortunately, a lot of people, because real estate is so prevalent, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Real estate sales are so prevalent that everybody is focused on the same few things. What's my house worth? Who can sell my house? What did the neighbor get for their house? How long did the neighbor's house go for sale? Things in my neighborhood seem to be selling well or not or whatever. But it's all because the real estate is the big equity piece. Everybody's focused on that piece, which is important for everybody at every age. So it's all important stuff, but there are significant distractions in it as well that we want to make sure that we understand, because it's more than just a real estate sale. The real estate is the big equity piece, but it can be a problem or it can be a smooth sale depending on how it affects and knocks on everything else along the way. So what's at risk? Well, for some people, the significant part of their life savings. A lot of clients that we talk to that are downsizing, I talked to a lady yesterday in the Corth area of Ontario, and she lived in a small town, and she's got a house and she wants to downsize, but she got a reverse mortgage a few years ago, so she's got some debt against the house. She's got equity, that's good. And she's got a little bit of pension stuff, but not a ton. And so she's trying to figure out where can she go and what can she afford. And so I got on a spreadsheet with her. I put some numbers in based on her life and told her, hey, look at this is what I see on the surface of it. But really what she needs to do is find out what her financial planner thinks. So she really should sit down with that before we get committed to solutions. But that's a good early start. But it goes to show you that what that lady needs is the home equity that she's got left really needs to supplement her pensions so that she can live out the rest of her life in some kind of reasonable comfort. And it's in the cards for her, but she needs to make decent choices as she's going forward. So her home equity is a really important piece of that. And what's at risk is emotional well-being. Man, emotional well-being can bleed into a whole lot of levels of things, folks. There's so many aspects to it. You've got the things you're going to miss, the lifestyle, the place that you've had, the memories, all that kind of stuff. Family being raised there, possibly, and other knock-on effects from family. So a lot of emotional risk as well. And these things compromise our ability to really think clearly about what's important to us and what are we going to do, right? And physical safety, obviously, is at risk when we downsize. Slip and fall is often one of the catalysts to a bad outcome and a downward slide. Not always, but it can be. And so physical safety is really important, and it is not to be overlooked. It has a lot to do with safety. People talk about moving to be somewhere where it's a little bit safer, and often families have different ideas, which brings up the next bullet, which is family harmony. So let me just bring this into context. Good-intentioned family members may feel terrified that mom is still in her 3-level house because they know that she's a little bit vulnerable to fall on some of those stairs on the way down and really get into a bad spiral after that. Mom may be super happy to be there and she's completely comfortable with the stairs and she's not ready to downsize. So the important thing is people should live where they want to live and where they can comfortable living, where they like it, where they enjoy it, where they can afford it. They should be safe as well, but safe, they get to determine what it is. Now, what we want to do and what we want you to know more about is how to make sure that they're seeing safety the way I see it and the way you may choose to see it after we have this conversation today. But family harmony can be a risky thing. It can be a lot of stress. Families making decisions together. They've grown up as siblings, and now mom or dad is going to make a big downsize, and often people have different opinions, and some of those opinions conflict for all kinds of reasons, and that can create really a safety gap as well. So important stuff. And again, seniors are targeted, right? Because why? Well, they've got high equity in their place, and they've got high trust, right? They've got confusion around the process, and scammers follow vulnerability, right? Scammers follow vulnerability. Folks, there are over 35,000 people over 90 years old in Ontario alone that sell their house each year. I mean, that's a big number of people who sell their house. Over 90. So people are over 95. There's close to 15,000 that sell their house annually in Ontario. So 95-year-olds living in their house today and thinking about downsizing. Now, our average age of our average client is 85, and we have some 95s and olders as well. But 85 is kind of a watershed spot for us. I can tell you that comes from a lot of business and a lot of repeats. So it's a reasonably common theme, people around that 85-year-old mark, where they may have another 5 to 10 years of statistical life left, and they want to enjoy that. But for a lot of them, they want to get somewhere else. So think about how many clients they are and how mentally strong they are. So one of the things that we're going to get into when we talk about safety today is their mental acuity, right? So as we get older, all of us, I'm feeling it, I'm 66, maybe some of you guys folks are feeling it too. But as we get a little bit older, we're not as sharp as we used to be. We get a little less sharp every day. Think of yourself, try to put yourself in the shoes of a 90-year-old who's thinking about downsizing with the various complexities that are out there, and we'll talk about some of them as well. And they're going down a route that they're trying to figure out themselves all by themselves. And if they're your clients, I don't think you want that either. You want to be in those conversations and making sure that you're not pushing them out of their house, but make sure that you're aware when it is that they're going to make the move. And I made another webinar about more of that topic. So I was going to tell you, I was at a dinner recently with a former politician, a high-level politician. Everybody'd know him if I named him. He's got Alzheimer's now, and he still lives at home, and he gets out to a lot of dinners, but he's really slipping. He's got a form of Alzheimer's, I guess. He's got Alzheimer's, and he has a lot of expressed uncertainty. As a matter of fact, last night he had trouble just remembering exactly if he had intended to stay in town that night or go to his house, which is a little bit out of town. And he wasn't sure for a minute, and then he said, oh, wait a second, I guess I don't have any clothes, I don't have a suitcase, so I must not be planning on spending the night anywhere in town, so I guess I'm going to go home. And obviously, he's not going home by himself. He needs to get a cab or somebody else to take him home from the event. But think about these folks. There's a lot of people out there that are not as obvious in that, but they're trying to make these downsizing decisions, and they're going through a process, and we're going to talk about do it yourself and done for you in a minute, and it'll become just a little bit more clear about how all this shakes out. Let's talk about some examples of real world risk, right? So there are real world risks that are out there, and people ask us about these things. You're seeing some of them in the news as well. In the real estate industry, we've seen examples of trust account fraud, and it's real. It happens. There have been several in the GTA. I wouldn't say not tons, but more than a couple in the GTA over the last 6 months that have really been in the news because the trust account was being raided by improper use. So the trust account in the real estate world is not the brokerage's money. It's money that is pending a deal. So it's typically a trust deposit from a buyer who's buying something, and that trust deposit is going to be credited toward the purchase, and the seller is going to get it toward what they receive on the closing of the property. And the real estate brokerage is just holding that, pending that movement. So it's a real thing. It happens. We hear examples of lawyers misusing funds, and they make the newspaper from time to time. We hear in the news of movers who are nefarious, and they're quoting some price, they're putting the moving stuff on the truck, they're driving it to the next location, and then it's like, guess what? The quote's changed. We're not going to unload the truck with your furniture unless you pay us this other amount, which is entirely different from what they had quoted. And then there's fake downsizing experts. So I don't want to go down too far into this thing. I just want to make you aware that taking a course and getting a certificate alone doesn't make you an expert in anything. It may advance your knowledge of something, and that's terrific. And I'm a big advocate of education. Obviously, or I wouldn't be here today. But you really got to dig a little bit deeper. These days, in a world of marketing, many folks have multiple landing pages. They got a landing page that says that they're an expert in this, another one that says an expert in that, another one that says they're an expert in another thing. And so they kind of chase around whatever is going on, whatever looks like this particular client needs to hear. So these are examples of all the scams that we hear about, folks. So we got the grandparent scams, some bank card scams, the romance scams. There was a thing on the news the other night on one of those investigation shows about romance scams that coupled with investment scams, where the person who's talking is a bit attractive in one way or another, and so, or they're using fake pictures, etc. And then they're convincing people to give up their money. And so there's all kinds of stuff. We see tenant scams. But so these are real, they happen, but in my opinion, they're not the real risk. These are risks, And they're real, so you got to pay attention to them. But there are other risks that are even more real. Fraud is real. We see the conversations in the news. This is where you are of considerable value, folks, to your clients. I want to talk about one just thing. We mentioned a few minutes ago about, let me just go back here a little. I think I jumped ahead. So the real risk in downsizing is poor choices. I'm going to touch for a minute on something called the paradox of choice. So a guy named Barry Schwartz, almost 20 years ago, a California professor, did a TED Talk or something. It's on YouTube if you want to look it up. It's called the paradox of choice. And the proposition is very, very clear and true. He says that we live in a society where we've got more choice than we ever had, yet less and less decisions get made. And why? And the answer is because people become paralyzed with the amount of choices. So that's a real fact, folks. That's not an opinion. It's a fact. So basically, if you go in the grocery store and you see 25 choices of a particular kind of product and you're intending to get one of those products, there's less chance of you buying the product that you went in to buy than there is if there were only 3 choices available, because you get choice paralysis. Now think about that, which is a fact, and think about it on an 85-year-old who's trying to downsize, and she's got various kinds of options in front of her, 2 or 3 different children with different ideas, maybe. Everybody's bringing different ideas forward. Maybe they're looking at retirement communities and they look at too many. All of these things are things that can paralyze, and I've seen people they just keep missing the train. They just keep missing getting on it because they're always waiting to just be a little bit clearer in how they see things. So poor choices and bad advice, in my opinion, are perhaps the biggest problem that people have. I'm going to shape this out for you as we talk through this webinar. 40 years ago, some marketing experts coined the idea that our heads are like 1-liter containers and they're already full. And the marketing messages that were coming at people 40 years ago are a fraction of the marketing messages that are coming at people today. When you think about trying to be an 85-year-old, even just think, I use 85 all the time, folks, because it's the average for us, but all senior ages, folks, trying to figure out a computer can be paralyzing for a lot of folks. But in any case, it's bad choices, poor choices, and bad advice. And bad advice is rampant as well. And bad advice isn't always nefarious. It's often because the person being asked to provide the advice is a confident kind of person who likes to give answers, whether they know it or not. I compare some of this stuff to ChatGPT. A lot of us are getting familiar with ChatGPT, and a lot of us who have used it know that you can ask it a question. It works on predictive detail. It's got all kinds of resources, but sometimes you ask a question that it gives you the wrong answer to. And when it gives you the wrong answer, it does it with as much confidence as it does when it gives you the right answer. And there are humans like that too, folks, lots of them. And in the real estate business is one of the places. So poor choices is a common problem that leads to significant pressure and stress. So safety in downsizing for your clients is about understanding what the important choices are so they can avoid being distracted by other people's agendas. Just think in terms of marketing yourself. You're doing marketing, you're trying to attract your target client, you're trying to speak to your client. But in the meantime, there's all kinds of messaging that's out there, and people have a hard time discerning what it is, right? So it's about understanding what the important choices are and helping them make those best choices. If we don't know what our own goal is, and this isn't you, this is your client. If your client doesn't know what their own goal is, they're going to be very, very vulnerable to being part of someone else's. Every salesperson selling every product that has a pitch, and many of them are good, and your client is more vulnerable than anybody if they're a senior who's starting to fade a little wee bit. And this is the real risk that everyone is exposed to when they downsize. An example, I'm not sure if people have seen the commercials for Shingrix, which is a shingles vaccine. And the ad goes something like your chances, your odds of getting hit by lightning or something, and gives you the odds. Your odds of having something stolen from you, your odds of being in a car accident. And then it says your odds of getting shingles, and it's 1 in 3. So it's a pretty good commercial because I've only seen it a couple of times, but I can remember the point to it. And the point is 1 in 3. And then it goes on to tell you that the Shingrix vaccine will prevent all this, which is fine. But that's an example of choice, and it's an example of real risk versus the kind of risk people get afraid of. We hear people today, they're afraid to fly. This person's afraid to drive on the highway. This person's afraid of whatever. There's all kinds of things that people are afraid of, and some of them have an element of realness to them, like those fraud schemes do. They have an element of realness, and they are things to be concerned about, but they're not the real risk. The real risk, the one that 100% of people are exposed to, is the risk of getting on the track as they go forward, on the wrong track going forward. Okay? So poor choices, getting the sequence wrong is one poor choice. So we'll talk about sequence a bit. And what I mean by that is the order in which your clients ought to move forward in their downsize. And getting the sequence wrong is one of the biggest risks that they can get into and make the wrong decision. Working with suppliers who don't understand their specific needs and situations. So if you're selling hammers, every problem looks like a nail, okay? And if you're one of your clients, one aspect of their problem is the nails, then the hammer salesman is going to be happy to talk to them and show them how this hammer is going to fix that part of the problem. But that problem probably has several other facets that aren't getting fixed unless the supplier sees the entire picture. So working with someone who's just responding to needs isn't, or the express need or the thing that they do isn't really enough. I mean, we spend a lot of time with clients trying to figure out everything that's going on in their life that's important so we can make sure that we understand the situation, because there are times when we need to tell a potential client, a prospect, listen, we're not for you. This is not the solution for you. Based on what you've told us, we're not it. You need to get to this kind of a solution, not the one that we supply. So it's important to really diagnose and know. And people that are supplying just a single aspect, they don't go that deep often, and they're just trying to sell the thing that they're up to. And if the person, your client, doesn't know exactly what they want, they're going to buy the wrong thing. And assuming an agent who is nice for someone else is relevant for you. So this is the most common issue in the real estate business is, I got a friend in the business. I know they're nice. I know they're pleasant. I know that there's been successful for clients in getting properties sold. So I get a 35 or 40-year-old that is one of my clients as well, and I want to recommend to them a real estate agent because they've asked me. Well, good choice. The person you know, your friend, et cetera, is professional. Knock yourself out. I think that's a good choice. But if your client's 85 years old and she has memory issues and she's got several other things to figure out on her way that need to be sewed together, then somebody, just because they're nice and they know how to get a house sold, is not what that client needs. It's not the great choice. And misidentification of the problem, which is a really common thing. We get lots of clients that call us, or lots of people that call us, and they've gotten themselves into a crisis because they worked with somebody who didn't understand what the problem was, and then they end up creating something worse. So fundamentally, the forks in the road, when you're talking about downsizing, your client's talking about downsizing, they're asking you for input, is this fundamental thing. This is the most important thing they can ask themselves first that you can talk to them about. Do they want a done for you or do it yourself experience? Okay? So as a financial planner, this is one choice to eliminate 1,000 choices, okay? Versus 1,000 choice path. So think about this. As a financial planner, you are in the done for you world. If you've got an 85-year-old client, I strongly expect she's not calling you every day, telling you what trades she wants to make and how soon, et cetera, et cetera. She's probably put her trust in you to do it for her. So you are figuring it out. You're doing a profile on her to figure out what her changing risk tolerance is. And then you're putting her into the things that she needs for her safety based on what her stated goals are and what you know about the client. So that's what we call done for you. Now, the unfortunate reality is the done for you world is not present largely in the real estate business. It exists in the downsizing business, but not in the real estate business. So if your client sees their problem as a real estate problem, and they ask other folks for recommendations of who's a nice, pleasant, and competent real estate agent, they're going to get the answer, and it's the wrong street for them unless you agree that your 85-year-old client ought to get on a do it for yourself track, because that's what it is. It's gray because we know that real estate agents are always into a spot where they're nice and they know something and they know how to sell a house probably, which is great, but they don't know all the details of what's going on in the client's life, and they're not expected to. They're not asked to. And sometimes they are asked to do something, and they're happy to give advice wherever they can. But it's a different context. It's giving the client advice so that they are in a better position to do it themselves. So it is completely against and different than what the financial planner is doing. You're doing done for you work. So compare this to a salesman who's just selling, or I was going to say, you live in a done for world. So when your client does their own investing, RSP buying, TFSAs, etc., they're looking to you to financial manage. Done for you is working with a professional. Done for you is working with a professional who understands all their moving parts, who weighs them and discusses options, and then delivers the solution end to end so that they've got a done for you experience. Do it yourself is hiring their nephew, the real estate agent, and asking them for advice on how to do all the other things that the agent's never done before. Okay? An early decision to opt for done for you is the safest and easiest path that your client can take as they think about downsizing. So just 1,000 choice path is the other path, and you practice done for you, etc. when you find out, and you want your client lost in the minefield of do it yourself. So done for you, do it yourself, and why leave somebody like that in the hands of an 85-year-old, right? So the best sequence for most is to understand your clients under financial evolution before they cash in their equity. So like this lady that I talked to yesterday, she didn't want to move until she understood her financial picture, and that's exactly what she needed to do. So that's a product of how old is she, what's her health like, what's her lifestyle like, how much money is in the bank, how much money in equity, and what's it going to cost her to live elsewhere, what's it costing to live here, etc., and then making judgments as she goes forward on that basis. So the best sequence for most is the following. So first, understand your finances. Choose where you want to go and secure it before you talk about listing your house. So make sure that you've looked at the options. You got all the time in the world, and until you list your house and sell it, you got all the time in the world. Well, maybe not all the time in the world, but you got time, more time, because there's no burning bridge behind you. So take your time to figure out the thing that you want to move to, that it's available, and what you can get from a move-in date. Okay? Plan and execute the move before you sell the house. Like, low stress, man. You're going to rent a house. You don't need to take all your equity with you that day. So plan on moving out of your house and getting into your apartment or retirement community before you put the house on the market and sell your contents. Get that stuff behind you next. And then sell your contents. So you've moved, you got that done. Now sell the contents. Get them sold. Now they're out of the house. Somebody makes you an offer that wants to close in 3 weeks. You don't have a 3-week burning platform to figure out how to deal with your contents when your nephew wants to get some and he's 3 provinces away. You deal with this. Lots of time to deal with that stuff in a sane, low-stress manner if you go in the right sequence. And then finally sell your house. You gather the assets into the financial planner portfolio, and you're on your way together. Your client is through it, and they're in a better place. Okay, so the done for you, do it yourself question is the simplest, easiest. The next most important thing that people can do is adopt the correct sequence. These are, back to the Shingrix, folks, these are the things that every downsizing homeowner will deal with. Everyone will face, and so the risk is 100% of the time. It's not like you might get hit by something, you might fall, you might do this. This is everybody, right? Distractions. Distractions are one of the biggest things that go on in people's lives that make them unsafe, okay? And distractions, common distractions, are marketing tactics, okay? And I'm just going to give you a few. Back to this thing where there's more marketing messages and our heads are already full. You're an 85-year-old, you're trying to discern what's best. People are just trying to do business, folks. There's nothing bad about real estate agents. We deal with them every day. They're buying houses, selling houses for people, giving them assistance, telling them what they know, coaching them through the process. They're not a bad guy. But they're all in the business of doing business. And part of the business of doing business is getting more business. And you do that a variety of ways. You send out marketing messages and you try to capture as much of the audience as you can. And in my experience, it's a very, very rare real estate agent who turns down some business just because it's something they haven't done before or something they don't understand the facets of. In most cases, they're going to take it on anyway because the commissions are big and just try to work their way through it and be satisfied that if they get the house sold, they've met the minimum criteria. And frankly, if they're really nice through the whole process, they may do a disastrous thing for their client, and their client still thinks they've done a good thing because they set the bar really low. All they wanted was to get their house sold, even though they've got a crisis on their hands. So these are just marketing tactics, folks. Here's a few that we hear. There's one loud campaign that I hear. Agent has a multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. Sure, multi-million-dollar marketing campaign. No doubt that the agent, a big agent, spends $1 million a year marketing. That's true, I'm sure. The portion of that money that's marketing property that they have listed, I think is probably a small fraction of it because you don't have to. MLS tells the entire world that the property is for sale. So while it has some truth in it, it is 100% distraction, right? Open houses are distractions. People ask, are you going to run an open house for me? Well, open houses are opportunities for listing agents to double end a property, to get a chance to meet people and try to get the property sold themselves, double their commission, meet more future contacts, use your property as a place for them to work from, to look and meet more contacts. So they're not critical in the sale of property, right? I got a buyer, right? Here's an unsolicited cash offer. Staging, we're going to stage your property better. Listen, I'm not here to debate whether staging is an effective tool for some people. It's a product of 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds who need to sell their property and move to another property and take their equity with them and close on both properties on the same day and port the mortgage from one property to another and then put up with living a bit awkward until those events all fall into place. It's designed for a particular purpose and it's fine. It's not a one size fits all, and it certainly isn't the path, in my view, of least distraction as it relates to an 85-year-old who wants to sell their house. We've probably sold 25 houses in the last couple of months, and I can tell you that they're all empty, virtually staged and empty. And virtual staging is pretty good these days too. Shiny, fancy, glossy brochures, pets on the brochures, folks, mailers, buses, bus stops, face signs, faces and cell phone numbers on signs. Man, these are distractions when it comes to what your 85-year-old client requires when they're trying to get done. And then senior designations. I mentioned that a little bit early as well. I'm all for education. I got a bunch of senior designations myself, but that isn't the thing that makes us different. What makes us different is 3,500 times we have given the holistic experience of a complete downsize or estate settlement, including the sale of contents, moves, shipping, etc., property checks, property management, etc., for our clients, and given them a smooth, seamless experience. That's where our specialty and experience comes from. So those are external distractions. Internal distractions happen too, okay? So internal distractions, a lot of people get paralyzed. I talked about paradox of choice, which is one of them, okay? And along with that, these things can paralyze your clients as a result, they may never ever make the move because they're overwhelmed. They're just not sure where to begin. For many people, making the move is good, but for the client, that's when they find what they want and need, but it's also good for you since you ought to be gathering up their assets. So making a move for a downsizing client who's clear that they want to do it is a good thing. It's good for them. It's good for you. And they don't want to be frustrated by these internal factors that can drive your clients to make poor choices like a cash sale, a bulk sale, et cetera, et cetera. They're things, again, that are built for someone who's in another business to try to get you. Often we hear, as an example, hey, I need to sell my house, I need to do all this stuff, but one of the pieces, I know this person who expressed some interest in the property, I want to make sure that they get invited to the party. No problem, and that's all doable, but more often than not, The reason they've been soliciting the person ahead of time, it has something to do with the fact that they can't come to the table with cash. They got to come to the table with conditions of some kind. And that may or may not be the thing that serves your client best. And so it's good to have them as part of the mix. It's not always a good idea to just tie your wagon to that one person and they're just because they're nice and they asked, okay? We're dealing with a property currently that's got a right of first refusal registered on title. And those are always awkward for selling of a property. And so they're placed with the best of intentions. Somebody that the seller likes or liked at one point comes forward and says, hey, I'd really like to buy your house when you're done with it. Can I get a right of first refusal? And they may or may not pay something for it, but nonetheless, they make some legal arrangement. That right of first refusal, it may be a very awkward thing for the seller to get to a real sale of the property with that in place because it may inhibit other activity that they want. So internal distractions, they're not sure where to move to. They're not sure how they can get there. They're not sure who can help them out. So they often get wrapped up in these things and the typical hoarder situation or just way too much stuff. So here's the truth, folks. For downsizers, hoarders, true hoarders, don't downsize. True hoarders die in their house or somebody takes them out because they have become completely unable to make decisions and everyone knows that it's obvious and someone's pulling them out of there because they need to be in long-term care or something. No hoarder, true hoarder, full-on hoarder is going to make a conscious decision to downsize because they've got too many things going on in their head that are in front of that. It's just not going to get to it. Like true hoarders, folks, have houses that really are monster kinds of things to work through, and we've worked through them, and we do it from time to time, certainly several times a year for estates when someone's passed away, and sometimes we do it for a client who is in long-term care and somebody else is making the decisions for them. But these are the kinds of things that stop people from moving forward, and they're distractions for them, right? And pets often drive decisions as well. I just throw that out there. It just is what it is. And also pets will influence where someone can move to because many places won't accommodate the pet that they have. If they get a small one, many places will accommodate it. If they have a big one, fewer places are going to accommodate them. So they can get in the way and be a problem with somebody trying to get through that. The healthiest choice, folks, is listen, live where you want to live. Tell your clients they should always live where they want to live. They should live where they can afford to live. They should live where it's safe. And they should move when they want to move, okay? So many people ask, when's the best time to sell my house? Again, that's a 35-year-old's question or a 45-year-old's question. It's not an 85-year-old's question. But they all ask. They all ask because the marketplace, the real estate industry, their neighbors, their kids are all on that same path. They all speak the same language. They're all thinking it's all about the money. It's all about, we got to get the best price for your house, Mom. We got to make sure that we get the best price for your house. Well, I'll tell you what, you can't pick the seasons, okay? We've all by this time seen what COVID looks like, and we know what impact it had on the marketplace. It drove it higher and higher and higher. Sorry, folks, through about a 3-year period, if you were trying to time the market and you were waiting a month, or you were selling it this month and not waiting, and selling it this month and not waiting, every single month the market went up. You'd have been wrong every single time you made a choice if you were making it on market timing, okay? Until the last month when it peaked in February 2022, I think. And then after that, boom, it went the other way. But what I'm saying here is for an 85-year-old, market timing is a complete distraction. It doesn't matter. The market is there. It will be there for them. It's fine. I'm talking to a cancer patient right now who's dealing with a divorce, internal family crisis, a looming mortgage crisis, too much stuff around. And she's asking me if it's a good time to sell. And I'm telling her the same thing. Listen, that's not the question. The question is, are you living in the place that's the right place for you right now to manage the things that are going on in your life? Or are these things that are going on in your life a problem for you because you got cancer, you're taking treatments, etc.? The number one thing in your life right now needs to be your health. And whatever decisions that you can make to support that are the decisions that are going to be the right decisions. And market timing is not one of them. Market is going to be there. If she decides to sell her house soon, that's fine. If she decides to sell it in 6 months, that's fine. If she decides to keep it and not sell it, that's fine. If the decisions are all made around what's going to be the healthiest choice for her. Okay? We get lots of situations where we get a couple. In the case that I remember last week, we get a husband and a wife, and the wife's like, we're ready to get moving. And then a few days later, the wife calls and says, listen, we got to slow down. My husband says we got to slow down. And what's the problem? Well, his health isn't well, and he wants to get stable before he goes down this road. Important, right? Unfortunately, a lot of these scenarios end up where that person doesn't make it to the move. They expire. And if that was their choice, then that's fine too. It's whatever they want to do. But slowing it down often isn't the right decision. I mean, we also see lots of folks where we've got a couple and the husband knows something's going on with his health and he wants to get the move done and completed while he's still alive so that he can help his wife figure it out and then know that she's in a place that is more stable for her to live in for the following years after he's gone. So lots of questions around there, folks. Move when you want, when your client wants. That's when I want you to tell them to think about moving. Okay, downsizing, high risk things. Okay, this is one of the highest risk things that an 85-year-old can do when they go to downsize is get their house on the market before they know where they're going to go or how they're going to get there. We get lots of calls from people that say, hey, I just listed my house and I want to know if you guys can help us move. Well, for us, that's not going to be the case because we're a real estate company that does that for our clients, but not for other people's clients. So we can have a little conversation, but how did you get yourself listed when you're not sure where to go? Well, we don't think it's going to sell very quick. Well, I can tell you that I've also heard lots and lots of people tell me the story that we put our house on the market and we didn't think it was going to sell. And boom, it sold on the first day. And we just got an offer and we didn't think we should refuse it. So boom, here we did. And we had 3 weeks to find another place. As a matter of fact, we're selling a property right now. It's coming up. It's one of our clients. The daughter and the dad met me at the property, and the dad's had a stroke. He's not too well, and he's moving to an assisted living place. And so that's fine. He's going to move there. I asked him, how long have you been in this house? And he said, well, about 7 years. And I said, really? Where'd you live before? And he told me, and I was about an hour away from there. And I said, really? What brought you to this community? It's like an hour away from where you used to live. Well, he said, we had to buy fast because our house sold before we realized. And so there weren't many choices available for what could accommodate us at the time for the price that we wanted to pay. And so this is where we are. And I'm looking around at the house that he's in, and it didn't look to me to be an awesome choice for what I think their life was over the last 7 or 8 years. But anyway, it'll be fine. It'll be a good house for somebody, and they'll find it in the real estate market. But all I'm saying is that's high risk, right? That's what we call a man-made crisis. It's a crisis that didn't have to be. It was a crisis that was aided because their real estate agent 7 years ago who was listing their house and get it sold for them, in my view, wasn't helping them think about their future. He was just thinking, hey, I think I can get this sold and I'm going to get a commission, check the box, and my client's going to recommend that I was pretty good at getting his house sold, which is fine. And then the buyer agent, they're not obligated to you. They're obligated to their buyer. And so the buyer agent, they don't have a dog in the hunt, right? They're just doing the best they can to get the buyer. So anyway, we call that a man-made crisis, folks. Falling down the stairs, getting cancer, having a stroke, those are crises that you can't help. They happen. Making a decision that puts you in crisis, that's a decision that puts you in crisis, okay? So list before moving, forced timelines set by external elements like a buyer closing time. Expensive storage. I'm not going to go into a bunch on storage today, folks, but know it. Like, storage is the wrong solution for your 85-year-old downsizing client. Maybe if she's got a nephew that's a long way away and he needs to come and pick some stuff out and he can't get here for 3 months, then you do something where you get storage for a short period of finite time. But putting stuff in storage because you're not sure where to go with it, that's a bad idea. We see lots of it, and it's stuff that is pushed around because people are making decisions in the wrong order. And chaos, folks, lots of chaos. So actual move risk reduction looks like this. Learn the options, right? Learn the options and choose the destination. Folks, there's lots of places out there today. The apartment vacancy rate is growing a little, so more decent apartments are available in most communities on a regular basis. They're becoming a little more. The builders were good in building things. There's more retirement communities and assisted living options and NORCs. There are all kinds of things that are available for people downsizing that want to rent something. The options are out there. There are ways to find it. Professional services, we can help them make those decisions, but that's the order that they need to get things done, right? Get a floor plan. Once you've decided where you're going, get a floor plan that says this is how many square feet you got. And then you can plan what stuff you're going to take because you know what's going to fit, right? So much stress with people moving. Again, stress equals not safe. So much stress that drives a lack of safety is around, I'm not sure what I can keep in my life. Well, if you know where you're going and you know exactly how much room you have, then you can figure out what's going to stay in your life. If you've got a professional helping you out, they'll figure it out for you. Get moved and settled, sell the extra contents, and then prep the house for sale and sell the house, okay? So the actual move, risk reduction, learn the options, go through this path. That is the path that you want your clients to be on. So why does sequence matter? The destination sets the framework for the logistics, right? It shows you how much you can take, what needs to stay behind. After you've moved, you've taken what you need to take. The kids can come and get some stuff if you want them to. Take what you want, right? Then you know this is what's left that nobody wants. Makes it a whole much easier to make decisions at that stage, right? So, and when you're moving first and you know where you're going and how much stuff you're going to take, then you can control things like the timing, when you're going to move in, booking the elevators, and it's all straightforward. It reduces the hardest parts when you know that stuff and you just make those decisions pragmatically. Have an online auction for comments or contents, right? It's safe, it's transparent, it's arm's length, it's competitive. Transparency is king for a downsizer, folks. It's finite and everything finds a home and stays out of landfill. Not entirely, but mostly. So this is what a lot of people want. And again, most people come to this and think one of two things. They either think, I want to make sure I get a lot of money for my stuff that I've got to sell, or they've been told by 2 or 3 sources that used furniture isn't worth much, and they think, oh, my stuff isn't worth anything. I mean, it breaks my heart, but it's all going to have to go to landfill. So both of those things are often wrong. Very few people have an enormous amount of stuff that's valuable in their house after they've kept the things they want to keep and their kids have kept the things that they want to keep, but many do. And that's fine. And an online auction can capture that value. And there are other kinds of auctions. I don't need to go into all of them today, but an online auction of contents from the house is safe, transparent, arm's length, competitive, finite. Everything finds a home. Folks, that's the experience that most people can get. And so it's not a big cash generator, but it accomplishes what you need in a safe, transparent way. We get all kinds of situations. A granddaughter says, hey, Grandma, I'll put your stuff on Marketplace. Well, they'll put 2 or 3 easy sell things on Marketplace, and then you're stuck with the problem, which is all the rest. But now that the total money pocket of what's left in your house is diminished significantly, and it might make the economics of whatever else you want to do more difficult. So many adult children give advice that what would they do if they were in that situation rather than looking through the eyes of the 85-year-old in their family. So family risk, folks, just to highlight the things, most family members aren't overtly nefarious, but they're often just short-sighted, short of time, short of knowledge, and full of input or unavailable or controlling. There's lots of personality types that are out there. I recommend a course called Archetypal Relationships. If you want to have a fun intro to it, /quiz will take you to a 10-question quiz that'll make you scratch your head a little bit and do some thinking. And then once you've done that, it'll tell you which of the 4 human archetypes you are. And it's important stuff. It's terrific stuff to know in your business and in our business because it helps you figure out the people around you and yourself, in fact, and the kinds of things that work for you and work for other people. So the primary survival archetypes are something to learn and understand. But just to put it simply, family risk, folks, you can find family that are good and helpful. Family members might be good but unhelpful because they give bad advice, like I want you to hire my friend the real estate agent, when it's the wrong choice for mom. And they're bad and unhelpful. So we've seen that too, bad and nefarious, and then just not being able to see the problem through the eyes of the senior, okay? So who can the senior rely on, right? So it's a confusing world. Who's the senior going to rely on if there are all of these marketing messages out there that are conflicting marketing messages, et cetera? And the answer is you. They can rely on you. So become informed and then be the best source for the best connections so that they can stay on the right track and make decisions that are the right things for themselves, okay? We have a client right now that we signed up a couple of weeks ago, and she's about 85. She's a retired doctor, super smart lady, super nice lady, single, and she has memory issues. So things confuse her. So she asked 3 friends for a reference from each of them. Who should I get for a real estate agent? And she got 3 referrals. One of them referred our company. The other 2, including her financial planner, recommended individual real estate agents who are both nice and professional and capable of selling houses, right? Otherwise, why would they be your friend, right? And so they got the right, and the lady, she thought, well, I'm going to do my due diligence and interview everybody. Sounds good on paper. But as we talked about in the paradox of choice, it actually creates more stress, right? Because she was confused. She'd seen the 2 before me, and she said, gee, I'm having a hard time picking between them because they were both really nice people, and I like both of the people that recommended them. And then I sat down and explained what we do and our program, and they said, well, actually, that's exactly what we need. And those 2 other agents didn't talk to me anything about those things. So obviously, at the end of the day, she's our client, which is terrific, but she was, in my opinion, on a very bad track because she has memory issues. I have no doubt that the agents would have got the property sold. No doubt at all. And that they would have had a nice, cordial relationship with the lady. And the lady would have said, my real estate agent was really nice. I'm super. And maybe she would have recommended them too. But she wouldn't have made them responsible for all the chaos that followed that decision, because she wouldn't think the agent owns it or should own it. And that's really what the difference is. Agents don't think of themselves that way either. It's not bad. They're just in a different business, right? They're in the sale of houses business. And if you have a client who needs to sell a house and they're 50, connect them with your friend by all means. But if you have an 85-year-old client with memory issues, just think about what's going to be the best choice for that person, right? And help them make the decision that you think is the right decision. So we rely way too much on individual real estate agents in general, folks. They're simply not downsizers, movers, planners, funders, cleaners, or auctioneers, right? They sell property. Who can I rely on? Become informed. I'm going the wrong way in my slides here, sorry. Most people, once they hire an agent, ask them questions that the agent's not qualified to answer, and often they still get answers like ChatGPT. So you want to be the one that is helping them get the right information. You want to do that by being in front of the questions. So downsizing is unique. There are multiple stakeholders. There's an emotional load. There's a high volume of things to be purged compared to last moves, because this time is the last time they're selling their house, and they're selling 2,500 square feet and going to go to 700 square feet. So there's a lot of extra stuff. They're often not buying again. 300,000 people over 80 in Ontario sell their home each year, folks. 300,000. There's a lot of people with this problem, and a bunch of them are your clients. The elephant in the room that people don't talk about is called project management. Project management is the person who professionally figures it out for them and carries it through. It's the most important safety step that many people can take. They provide done-for-you solutions. How many 85-year-olds, in your view, are best at managing every detail of something that they've never done before on their own? And that's really where your clients are. Often they haven't done anything like this in terms of the big downsize. And here they are faced with it, right? So your home is your future cash flow for a lot of people, and that's important. Legal documents, I'd just say powers of attorney, wills, living wills, capacity clinic is something that you're going to hear more and more about. If you're not familiar with it, it's going to be an important piece of the puzzle in helping us all make sure that our clients have or do not have capacity, so that we can be in the right lane when we're providing advice to people and families and powers of attorney, etc. But a lot of times financial planners are in a position to catch up on this and make sure that these things are in place and that they're valid, et cetera, and it isn't power of attorneys with somebody that's already passed away. You want to make sure that these things are the right ones. I could tell you horror stories all day about people that didn't have the right ones up to date, or they did, and then there was another conflict and more trouble started. So real estate safety, conflicts, folks, at a high level, it's for you to understand as a professional because your client probably won't understand this. But there are lots of conflicts in the traditional real estate business that you want to make sure that they're not getting drawn into. We recommend pre-listing home inspections for safety. We recommend a pragmatic 7 days for sanity holding offers process so they get better data and they can be in a position of strength when they're looking at offers. We want them to choose an offer day that has strategic advantages for them. So that's the way that we want them. The downsizer superpower, folks, back to the market timing. A downsizer who's all equity in their house, who has a pension and some income, they can afford the place that they're going to and they can afford to pay the rent, and that equity is a top up. That downsizer should never be held hostage to the marketplace. Their superpower is that they can sell their house for whatever they want. You often hear people say, listen, I don't need to sell. I can wait forever. I'm going to get the price I want or I don't sell. That same coin can be flipped and say, hey, I don't need to sell. I got all the money in the world. I can give my house away if I want, and it's not going to change my financial future or how much money I spend for the rest of my life. So the downsizer's superpower is understanding that they don't need to be held hostage to the marketplace. If they want to be the best price in the market for a house of their kind when they go to sell, so that it sells in 2 weeks, they get a firm offer and they know it's behind them, saves them a lot of anxiety, that may be a terrific decision. Again, not pushing it down anyone's throat, but certainly you want to make it your clients aware that they don't need to be chasing that ideal thing. Well, my neighbors brought this and I couldn't possibly sell mine for less. I mean, it's all up to them. When you get the assets liquid and working for them, they're changing in value too. So it's not just because, hey, I'm keeping real estate because the real estate market's going up. You're paying taxes, heat, hydro, and you've already moved out. It's a negative asset. Switch it over to your liquid management and you got them in better shape. So folks, choose the right sequence. Look for stress reduction at every turn. Understand their goals and help them get there. Avoid distractions and tell them to use their superpower to guide how they move forward. It's been a pleasure visiting with you today, folks. We're at the end of the seminar and I hope you enjoy not only the CE credits, but you have an opportunity to really think about the things that you can be super valuable for your clients. That's the end of today's webinar. I am going to tag on a short film that I want you to have a quick look at. It's very, very short. And if it's something that you like, it may be something that you want to share with your clients as well. Thank you.
Thanks for being with me here today. Want to know when your client is a great fit to be our client too? Here's a guide for a downsizing client. 1. They are making their last big move, selling their home and moving to an apartment or retirement community. 2. They have all or high equity in their home. 3. They have a move to figure out. 4. They may not know exactly where to move to or when something suitable will be available. 5. They will have a number or a ton of things to sell or dispose of that they can't be keeping. 6. The people they might rely on to help them make the transition are either busy, too far away, or not able to physically help. 7. You want them to have a done-for-you experience, just like how you manage their money. If you have clients like this, the best gift you can give them is an introduction to a true done-for-you service. We take on the sale of the home and manage every aspect of the move and personal property that they want our help with. Find us at gogordons.com.
Barry, thank you so much for doing this for us. I have to say, one of the big chunks that I've pulled out of this more than anything else was how important the best sequence is for people to actually go through this downsizing process. And the most fascinating thing is selling the house was the last part of the process, not the first part of the process.
The issue is one of the pieces of the distraction with real estate, even on streets where people will tell you, listen, things in this neighborhood don't hang around long. They sell pretty quickly. That same person at some level is going to have a fear that it's going to take a long time to sell their house. And the real estate industry, unfortunately, feeds into that a little wee bit. That's why they think they got to start with that. They got to start on top and get that thing under control. But in reality, what's hard is lining up the exact dates that you want for the place you want to move into. So if a person is searching for retirement options or apartments, with all the time in the world, they can make a nice pragmatic choice. They can get their daughter involved in it. They can hire a professional search If they're working with us, then we'll with them on it. But they've got time to figure out the one that they want, and then they can move in when they want to move in. They don't have to wait for their property to sell. If the perfect suite is available, I always tell our clients after we've made an agreement with them, they say, "What's the next thing?" Well, the next thing is to find out where you're going if you don't know already. Well, and if you don't know already, here are some ideas. Let's talk about the kinds of things you want. We'll give you some coaching to make sure that you understand the kind of things. We can get a service for you to actually get you placed if that's what you want. But what you want is you want to know when you can get there, and then you want to get moved. And retirement communities want that too. They've got a suite that's available. They want to get that suite rented. They don't want to talk to a bunch of potential downsizers who say, yeah, I want the suite, but I can't go until I sell my house, right? So there's a bunch of people in the logjam. The one person who's our client and says, hey, I love the suite. When's it available? Next month on the first day? Perfect. I'll take it. Here's my deposit. I'm coming. And then they call us and say, listen, I just booked a spot for the first of the next month and I need to get there. How do I do it? And we say, listen, let's make the schedule, and it's going to be perfect and easy, and we're going to get you settled.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you even mentioned that it is the destination that really sets the framework of everything else. Because it's only when someone knows where they're going to go, and you use the example of going from a 2,500 square foot house to a 700 square foot apartment, it's only when they know the exact dimensions of where they're going that they can choose what furniture is going with them and then what furniture is being left behind. And that would take them to that next step, which is okay, now what happens with the rest of the furniture here? Okay, you ask the family to come in and take whatever they want. And whatever's not taken, okay, now what do we do with that? Okay, and this online auction idea is really neat to be able to take care of the next level. Whatever doesn't go in the auction, I guess, gets disposed of. But it really does set the framework and give that next step moving forward. And I love how you said at the very end that the superpower of all of these people is that they have the financial resources to really make a decision without having to need the proceeds of the house to be able to afford that decision. And that really sets everything up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's distractions, and it's the world we live in, right? There's 100,000 real estate agents, right, in Ontario, and I promise you, there are at best 100 that understand things the way that we understand it, and probably less than 50, right? Because they're just working as generalists, and they're dealing with different clients every day, and they're kind of going to step two all the time. And step two is typically, how fast can we get your property on the market, and what do we need to do about staging, which are, as I said, really irrelevant things for the 85-year-old downsizer.
Yeah, and that's also an absolutely important point to make is who are the clients who need this service? And those are, you mentioned numerous times in your presentation, your average client is 85 years old. As an 85-year-old, they're not going to be packing up the house. So
Oh,
who
it
does have to
shouldn't
pack
be.
up the house? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to be the one carrying the boxes into a moving van and then carrying the boxes out of the moving van into their new home. I mean, these are people that, as you mentioned, have, in the most part, more diminished capacity of making those kinds of decisions, making all the decisions that need to happen in this process. And you're really providing a much greater service than just selling a house. It is really all about being the project manager to go through this process of from that point where that client knows I need to make a change here because I can't handle this anymore, or my health has changed, or as you mentioned, even a slip and fall incident where the current home is just not safe anymore. And these people need to make a change. And my goodness, to think that there's 300,000 people in Ontario over the age of 80 that have sold their house just in the last year. That's a lot of people who are dealing with a lot of chaos that need help.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and there's my pitch. The financial planner can be a big, big piece in this puzzle to really
Yeah.
save them a lot, but they've got to shed the idea that they're getting their golf buddy just because they golf with them and think about which service in their town actually supplies the kind of things that their client needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And for every financial planner watching, to know that this is out there, this is part of this massive problem that every one of your clients over the age of 65, 70 years old, 75 years old is going to be facing in the next few years of their lives. This is certainly something that you need to know about so that when your clients do start talking about the subjects, or maybe this is a subject that as an advisor they want to broach as well, right, Barry? And then at least be able to have those conversations to have this part of that retirement planning process as those clients get to that next stage and that next transition point in their lives. Absolutely incredible, Barry. And you mentioned over 3,500 people you've helped in the last number of years to go through this process. So if I'm going to look for someone who's going to be able to help this process, I want someone who's experienced. So thanks very much for everything you've done already for all those people and for everything you're going to be doing in the future for all the next clients that come to you to be able to help them have an easier transition to get to that healthier place for them to be living in.
Thank you, Alan. It's great to be here with you.
Barry, have yourself an amazing day.